ZSU-37 was a Soviet-made, light, self-propelled anti-aircraft gun, developed by the end of 1943 and produced at Works No.40 in Mytishchi. It was the first Soviet series-produced tracked SPAAG. ZSU stands for Zenitnaya Samokhodnaya Ustanovka, meaning anti-aircraft self-propelled mount. History. Soviet engineers carried out some early experiments with tracked SPAAGs before and during World War II, including a modification of the T-70 light tank, resulting in the experimental T-90 SPAAG, which was armed with two 12.7mm DSHKT heavy machine guns. The T-70 light tank would eventually be further developed into the Su-76 light self-propelled gun chassis, which in turn was to become the base for the ZSU-37 SPAAG. It was decided to use the chassis of the Su-76M in order to speed up and cheapen the production of the much-needed tracked and armored SPAAGs. The ZSU-37 was produced from March 1945 to 1948, and 75 vehicles were built in total. As a result of its late production and the almost non-appearance of the few remaining Luftwaffe aircraft in the spring of 1945, the ZSU-37 saw no service in World War II. An experimental self-propelled anti-aircraft artillery battalion equipped with 12 ZSU-37 SPAAGs was formed by the end of 1945. After World War II, it became clear that the low rate of fire and firepower of a single 37mm AA gun was not effective against high-speed, low-altitude targets. The anti-aircraft artillery crews found it difficult to manually track fast-moving targets. SPAAGs based on a light tank chassis also had quite low maneuverability in difficult terrain and low off-road speed and range in comparison with medium tanks and self-propelled guns, which the ZSU-37 was meant to protect. The two tandem engines used on the Su-76M chassis required gasoline fuel, which was sometimes a problem in tank units equipped with diesel engine tanks. The ZSU-37 was retired from service because of the aforementioned reasons soon after series production was stopped. An effort was made to significantly increase the firepower by mounting the same 37mm gun into a quad mount on a T-34 medium tank chassis, but the vehicle never left the design stage as it was recommended by the Technical Council of the Ministry of Transport to use a newer tank chassis, and the more powerful S-68 57mm twin anti-aircraft autocannon, which was being developed at the time. The next step in Soviet tracked SPAAG technology would come with the ZSU-37-2, which was based on the T-54 medium tank chassis and was mass-produced in 1957 to 1960. The ZSU-37-2 YNSA is a later, unrelated design based on the chassis of the experimental Su-10OP self-propelled gun. It was armed with a twin -37mm 50OP Angara anti-aircraft autocannon. The development of completely new radar-guided SPAAG vehicles, namely the ZSU-37-2 and the ZSU-23-4, began in 1957. The promising ZSU-37-2 YNSA competed with the ZSU-23-4 Shilka as the replacement for the ZSU-572 SPAAG, but the planned series production of the YNSA was rejected in 1962 in favor of the production of the Shilka. Description: the ZSU-37 SPAAG was based on the chassis of the Su-76M, on which it was mounted an open-top turret armed with one 37mm 6.1K Mod. 1939 anti-aircraft autocannon. The vehicle was equipped with an automatic sight of the distance type with two collimators, a stereo rangefinder with a 1-meter base, a 1.2 RT3 radio, a TPU-3F intercom system and mechanical aiming mechanisms with two rates of angular motion for adequate speed and smoothness of aiming. A crew consisted of 6 men, a driver, an aimer for azimuth, an aimer for elevation, a sight adjuster for target speed and range, a sight adjuster for target course and dive angle, and a loader. The ZSU-37 was based on the Su-76M because it also shared its technical drawbacks and advantages, the most discussed of which was the open-top turret. To protect the crew from rain and snow, the gun compartment could be covered with tarpaulin. However, the gun could not be fully elevated when this was done. The open turret had advantages, such as high elevation angle, excellent visibility for the gunners, and no need for ventilation. Light and maneuverable, the ZSU-37 was considered quite an effective SPAAG in the mid-1940s. However, it had insufficient off-road capabilities to accompany medium and heavy tanks in difficult terrain. Ammunition consisted of 320 armor-piercing, fragmentation incendiary and fragmentation rounds. 130 rounds were in 5-round clips and 190 rounds were loose without clips. Armor-piercing composite rounds could be used against enemy heavy tanks. Muzzle velocity was between 890 and 920 meters per second depending on projectile type. The armor-piercing shell weighed 0.785 kilograms. Fragmentation shells weighed 0.732 kilogram. The autocannon could be depressed and elevated manually between -5 degrees and +85 degrees. Cyclic rate of fire was 120 to 130 rounds per minute, while the practical rate of fire was about 50 to 60 rounds per minute. Maximum combat vertical fire was 2,500 meters, while the maximum vertical range was 6,500 meters. The vehicle could cross 0.67 meters high vertical obstacles, 2 meters wide trenches, ford 0.9 meters deep water obstacles, and climb 25 degrees gradients. Transmission and undercarriage were identical to those of the Su-37 SPG. The engine was also the same but forced from 140 horsepower on Su-37M to 160 horsepower, a gas 203 which consisted of two tandem gas 202 6-cylinder row, liquid-cooled gasoline engines, each producing 80 horsepower at 3,600 revolutions per minute. Variants: Su-72 single SPAAG prototype. It was built by GAZ in the autumn of 1942. Based on the T-60 and T-70 light tank designs, it was armed with a 37mm 6.1K Mod. 1939 anti-aircraft autocannon in a fixed turret. The unsatisfactory performance of the engine cooling system was discovered during ground tests. Also, GAZ needed a significant change to its production operation to organize the serial production of new types of vehicles, which was impossible. During wartime, Su-11 single SPAAG prototype. Built by Works No.38 in Kyiv in November 1942. It was based on the T-60 and T-70 light tank designs. It was also armed with a 37mm 6.1K Mod. 1939 anti-aircraft autocannon in a rotating turret. The official tests were performed in December 1942, but the vehicle did not go into production. Su-17 SPAAG Prototype 3 were built between December 1943 and July 1944. It was based on the ZSU-37 chassis and armed with a 37mm 6.1K mod. 1939 anti-aircraft autocannon. The first prototype, which was built in December 1943, passed official tests in February 1944. Only minor defects were found. The second prototype was built in the spring of 1944. It was 1.2 tons lighter, equipped with a 6-cylinder gasoline engine ZSU-37 instead of a Gas 203. It had a different type of rotating turret. It was found during ground tests in July 1944 that the ZSU-37 engine did not provide enough power, so the third improved prototype with a previous engine system was built in the summer of 1944. The vehicle passed its ground tests in October to November 1944 successfully and became a direct predecessor of the series-produced ZSU-37. ZSU-37 series-produced vehicle, manufactured from 1945 until 1948 by Works No.40 in Mytishchi. Preservation status. The experimental Su-11 vehicle is on display at the Kubinka Tank Museum in Russia. Comparable vehicles: Mobile Wagon, Oswind, M19 multiple gun motor carriage, Crusader Mk. 3 anti-aircraft tank Mk. I-40M Nimrod.